Vicious.
Speaking from Vrindavan. Yeah. Om Agyantimirandasya Jnananjana Salakya Chakshurmitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupadamayyam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Utta Padagamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagrana Raghunatham Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadekam Savadutam Paryanna Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Sa Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishna Bhutale Sri Madhya Mukti Vedanta Swami Namni Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shrivadi Pasa Destani Vancha Kalpadruvasha Kapasan Devcha Patitanam Pavani Bhuvashnavilum Nama Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prempadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namni Vadhisanama Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinvangira Kadego Sagodra Kanda Radha Kanta Hamsake Kanchan Gaurangi Sirade Vindavani Sari Vishnuhani Hribu Kannami Haripriya Niyanjali Masanita Paramatmane Vanvali Sumudra Brahmana Chaitanya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Asadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So which verse we were supposed to take?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, 11.55.
11.55. Okay. So I hope all the devotees must have read the purports I told to read. So we will read 11.55 today. Mat karmakran mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjitaha nirvaira sarva bhutesu yasa mameti pandava. Please read.
My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations or fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. Hare Krishna.
So now Krishna is talking about general characteristics of various types of devotees. So like he says, mat karma karana, work for me. So some devotees work for Krishna. Or there may be one or all of these qualities. Mat paramo, he holds me as the supreme. That Krishna is the supreme God. I can give everything up for Krishna. Mad bhakta, one is devoted to me. Sangha varjitaha, one is devoid of material attachment. Nirvaira sarva bhutesu, he is devoid of hatred towards any living being. So then Krishna says, anybody who has these qualities, yasa mameti pandava, he attains me. One who works for Krishna, holds Krishna as supreme, devoted to Krishna, devoid of material attachment, devoid of hatred for any living being. So then he can attain Krishna. So this purport is also pretty powerful. What can be done? Maybe you can read the whole purport. It may take time, but it's very important purport.
Okay, Prabhu. So anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the supreme personality Krishna must take this formula. As stated by the Supreme himself, therefore, the verse is considered to be essence of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a book directed to the conditioned souls who are engaged in the material world with the purpose of lording it over nature and who do not know of the real spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita is meant to show how one can understand his spiritual existence and his eternal relationship with the Supreme Spiritual Personality, and to teach one how to go back to home, back to Godhead. Now here is a verse which clearly explains the process by which one can attain success in his spiritual activity, devotional service. As far as is concerned, one should transfer his energy entirely to Krishna conscious activities as stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.55. Ana Saktasya. Prabhu, can you read this sloka, Prabhu?
Anasakti Vasyan Yatharam Upayante Jeta Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagam Uchite. Yuktam Vairagam Uchite.
Yeah. Now, work should be done by any man except in relationship to Krishna. This is called Krishna karma. One may be engaged in various activities, but one should not be attached to the results of his work. The result should be done only for him. For example, one may be engaged in business, but not transform that activity into Krishna conscious. One has to do business for Krishna. If Krishna is the proprietor of the business, then Krishna should enjoy the profit of the business. If a business is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and he has to offer all this to Krishna, he can do it. This is the work for Krishna. Instead of constructing a big building for his sense gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna, and he can install the deities of Krishna and arrange for deity service as is outlined in the authorized books of devotional service. These are all Krishna karma. One should not be attached to the results of his work, but the results should be offered to Krishna, and one should accept as prasadam the remnants of offerings to Krishna. If one constructs a very big building for Krishna and installs the deities of Krishna, one is not prohibited from living there. But it is understood that the proprietor of the building is Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. If, however, one is not able to construct a temple for Krishna, one can engage himself in cleansing the temple of Krishna. That is also a Krishna karma. One can cultivate a garden. Anyone who has land in India, at least any poor man has a certain amount of land, can utilize that for Krishna by growing flowers to offer him. One can sow tulsi plants because tulsi leaves are very, very, very important, and Krishna has recommended this in Bhagavad Gita. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Krishna desires that one offers him either a leaf or a flower or a fruit or a little water, and by such an offering he is satisfied. This leaf especially refers to the tulsi, so one can sow tulsi and pour water on the plant. Thus, even the poorest man can engage in the service of Krishna. These are some of the examples of how one can engage in working for Krishna. The word mat paramaha refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in a supreme abode to be the highest perfection of life. Such a person does not wish to be elevated to the higher planets, such as the moon or sun, heavenly planets, or even the highest planet of this universe, Brahmaloka. He has no attraction for that. He is only attracted to being transferred to this spiritual sky, and even in the spiritual sky, he is not satisfied with the emerging into the glowing Brahma Jyoti effulgence, for he wants to enter the highest spiritual planet, namely a Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavana. He has full knowledge of the planet, and therefore he is not interested in any other. As indicated by the word Mad Bhakta, he fully engages in devotional service, especially in the 9th process of devotional engagement: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers, carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friends with him, and surrendering everything to him. One can engage in all 9 devotional processes, or 8 or 7, or at least in one, and that will surely make one perfect. The term Sangha Vrajayata is very significant. One should disassociate himself from the persons who are against Krishna. Not only are the atheistic persons against Krishna, but also are those who are attracted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. Therefore, the pure form of devotional service is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11 as follows: Anya abhyashita sunyam Jnana karmadi anvritam anukulasya krishnenu slilanam bhaktir uttama. In the verse, Srila Rupa Goswami clearly states that if anyone wants to execute unalloyed devotional service, he must be freed from all kinds of material contaminations. He must be freed from the association of persons who are addicted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. When freed from such unwanted association and from the contamination of material desires, one favorably cultivates the knowledge of Krishna. That is called pure devotional service. Anukulasya sankalpa pratikulasya varjanam. Hari Bhakti Vilasa 11.676. One should think Krishna and act for Krishna favorably, not unfavorably. Kamsa was an enemy of Krishna from the very beginning of Krishna's birth, Kamsa planned in so many ways to kill him. And because of he always unsuccessful, he was always thinking of Krishna. Thus, while walking, while eating, and while sleeping, and he always Krishna conscious in every respect. But that Krishna conscious was not favorable, and therefore, in spite of his always thinking of Krishna, 24 hours a day, he was considered a demon, and Krishna at last killed him. Of course, anyone who killed by Krishna attains salvation immediately, but that is not the aim of the pure devotee. The pure devotee does not even want salvation. He does not want to be transferred even to the highest planet, Goloka Vrindavana. His only objective is to serve Krishna wherever he may be. A devotee of Krishna is friendly to everyone. Therefore, it is said here that he has no enemy, Nirvanaha, who he is this. A devotee situated in Krishna conscious knows that only devotional service to Krishna can relieve a person from all problems of life. He has personal experience of this, and therefore he wants to introduce this system, Krishna consciousness, into the human society. There are many examples in history of devotees of the Lord who risked their lives for the spreading of God consciousness. The favorite example, Lord Jesus Christ. He has crucified by the non-devotees, but he sacrificed his life for spreading God consciousness. Of course, it would be superficial to understand what he was killed. Similarly, in India, also there are many examples such as Thakura Haridasa and Prahalada Maharaja. Why such risk? Because they wanted to spread Krishna conscious and it is difficult. A Krishna conscious person knows that if a man suffering, it is due to his forgetfulness, his eternal relationship with Krishna. Therefore, the highest benefit one can render to human society is revealing one's neighbor from all material problems. In such a way, a pure devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord. Now we can imagine how merciful Krishna is to those engaged in his service, risking everything for him. Therefore, it is certain that such persons must reach the supreme planet after leaving the body. In summary, the universal form of Krishna, which is a temporary manifestation, and the form of the time which devours everything, and even the form of Vishnu, four-handed, have all been exhibited by Krishna. Thus, Krishna is the origin of all this manifestation. It is not the Krishna is a manifestation of the original Vishnu Rupa or Vishnu. Krishna is the origin of all forms. There are hundreds and thousands of Vishnus, but for a devotee, no form of Krishna is important, but the original form, two-handed Shama Sundara. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that those who are attached to the Shama Sundara form of Krishna in love and devotion can see him always within the heart and cannot see anything else. One should understand, therefore, that the purport of this 11th chapter is that form of Krishna is essential and supreme. Thus, the Bhakti Vedanta purpose to 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the universal form. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for giving opportunity to read this purport, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
It's like very important purport for the devotees. It has like a lot of practical lessons, especially for Grasthas. And the reason I asked devotees to read it. So Prabhupada writes there that devotees, if you see exactly, if one constructs a very big building for Krishna and install the deity, first he writes, instead of constructing a big time building for his son gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna. Yeah. So he can construct, it is written here. So he can construct a nice temple for Krishna. And he can install deity of Krishna and arrange for deity service. This outlined in the authorized books of devotion service is called Krishna Karma. If one constructs a very big building for Krishna and install the deity of Krishna, one is not prohibited from living there, but I understood that the proprietor of the building is Krishna. That's called Krishna consciousness. That means devotees don't make buildings, they make temples. So that consciousness is there, that it is not my house, it is Krishna's house. Krishna is the owner. Then it becomes as good as staying in temple only. It is no more staying in a house. Similarly, if that consciousness is there, then everything becomes Krishna conscious. That is the way Pancharatri Vidhi transforms the activities of grahasthas into Krishna conscious activities. So then brooming in the house doesn't become brooming in the house, it becomes brooming in the temple. Cooking in the house doesn't become cooking in the house, it becomes cooking for deities. Earning for family members doesn't become earning, it becomes like fund collection, where you are maintaining Krishna and his devotees. So similarly, all activities through deity worship can be transformed into totally spiritual activities. So certainly, brahmacharis stay in the temple, but even grasthas also stay in temple. There's no difference. So it's just a matter of consciousness. And that consciousness also comes through a practical arrangement. Practical arrangement in the sense of what happens many times. For ourselves, we keep a very opulent room in the house. And many times for deities, now we don't have such a good arrangement. So what should happen is deities should be given the best arrangement in the house. If you have best arrangement for the deities in the house, then automatically the consciousness prevails that deities are the owner of the house. So that's why generally we recommend that grahastha should have good, nice, big altar should be there. And that should be like the focus of the house, center of the house. And make all good arrangements for the deities. If we do that, then automatically what happens is the consciousness prevails in the mind, this is not my house, it's temple. If you go to temple, there's no doubt only it is temple. Why? The reason is such a big altar is there. And there may be brahmachari ashram, there may be deity kitchen, there may be dedication is anyway for deities only. There may be guest house, this, that. But anybody goes to temple, there is no doubt it is temple. There's no doubt about it. Similarly, in the home, if somebody comes, arrangements should be made in such a way that there should be no doubt that this is a temple, this is not house. Then you can call it a temple. So whatever is required for us to make that consciousness and be conscious that this is temple, not house, we should do that. So we should try our best to do that. If we do that, then it is as good as staying in temple. So that's why we should mold our lives in such a way that we can always remain Krishna conscious. So it's not just something theoretical. We should arrange things practically in such a way that helps our consciousness. So that's what Prabhupada is basically writing about. If you do that, then we are always with Krishna. So in this chapter number 11, Krishna talks about, basically Arjuna wanted to see what he heard. He wanted to see the vibhutis of Krishna. So Krishna showed it Visrup Darshan. Then Krishna showed his Kalrup Darshan. In Visrup Darshan, he saw all the things spread in the space at one place. In Kalrup Darshan, Arjuna saw whatever spread in the time, which past, present, and future in one place. And then in what do we say? So this was Visrup, Kalrup. Then later on, Arjuna becomes very frightened, offers prayers. And towards the end, we find that Krishna showed his Swakam Rupam and then Saumya Rupam, Saumya Vapu, 400 form and 200 form. After that, Arjuna becomes specific. So that's what we learn in this particular chapter. Okay, Santosh Prabhu.
Correction, Prabhu, in the last purport, Prabhupada is saying that for a devotee, no form of Krishna is important, but the original form, the two-handed Shyama Sundara. So how can we understand this? Like for example, like Prahlad Maharaj is more dear to Lord Narasimhadev, and Bali Maharaj is more near to Vamanadev. They are also devotees of the Lord, but this statement, how can we understand, Prabhu?
Basically, this Prabhupada is writing more for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the mood is that we worship Shyamsundar form. We don't worship other forms. Worship means we may worship other forms, but then heart is Shyamsundar. Like even devotees worship Narasimhadev. The purpose is that now please remove the obstacle so that I can get Shyamsundar. That's the purpose. They may worship Lord Ram, but then ultimately they want to worship Lord Shyamsundar. For that they worship Lord Ram. So in this way, or Gaudiya Vaishnava, there is the mood. So Acharyas don't just give philosophy, they also give a mood. Along with philosophy, there is mood and mission. So you can understand is the mood of Prabhupada, where he is emphasizing on worship of Samson. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Right. So now we'll go to chapter number 12. Chapter number 12 is also called Susadhya Bhakti Yoga, in which superiority of Bhakti Yoga is very clearly given. So beginning with, Krishna will talk about superiority of devotees compared to Jnanis and everyone, because ultimately, whether it's Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis, Ashtanga Yogis, they all aspire for Brahman. So Prabhupada, Krishna talks about superiority of devotees over all these people. And then Krishna will talk about different types of or different levels of devotion service. And after talking about different levels of devotion service, ultimately at the end, Krishna will talk about the qualities which make one very dear to Krishna. So Krishna will talk about. Okay. So we'll begin with text number 1. Arjuna Vacha Evam Satata Yuktaye Bhaktastam Paryupasate Ye Chapi Aksharam Avyaktam Tesam Ke Yoga Vittamah.
Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? Hare Krishna.
So in 6.47 already Krishna has talked about superiority of bhakti. Yogi nama api sarvesam mat gati nantaratana saddhavan bhakto nam samyuk tamamata. Krishna already very clearly spoken. But again in 11.55 Krishna talks about the glory of Samson the root. So that's why again Arjuna wants to reconfirm. Same thing which already Krishna had confirmed in 6.47. So who are the best knowers of yoga? Yoga Vittamaha. So among Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, this Yogi, that Yogi. Yoga Vittamaha, who is the best knower of yoga? Who knows that process of attaining you? Are they actually, do they know the process of attaining you? So who knows? And then Krishna starts very clearly answering. Sri Bhagavan Ovacha Maya Vesa Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Siddhaya Parayopetas Tame Yukta Tamamata.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect." Hare Krishna.
So what Krishna says, he very clearly says, Siddhaya Parayopetas Tame Yukta Tamamata. My Avesya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate. So my devotees, those who desire to be constantly with me, Nityukta, they don't want to be separate from me. Then, Avesya Manoyama, their minds are always absorbed in me. After that, Paryosiddha, Paryat Sriddhaya Paryopetas. That means those whose faith is beyond three modes of material nature. So it's only faith in bhakti that is beyond three modes of material nature. All other faiths are within three modes. So I'll just wait a minute, I'll show that verse. So just have to wait for some time. And then Krishna says Yuktitama. Yuktatma means those Ananda Bhaktas are best of all. So I'll just show you the verse from Bhagavatam. 11, 25, 27. So I'll just share with all of you. सात्विकी आध्यात्मिकी श्रद्धा कर्म श्रद्धा तु राजसी कर्म श्रद्धा तु राजसी तामसी धर्मे या श्रद्धा मत सेवायाम तु निर्गुणा. तो सात्विकी आध्यात्मिकी श्रद्धा. So spiritual, or you can just read it, but to take into Sanskrit. Please read it.
Faith directed toward spiritual life is in the mode of goodness. Faith rooted in fruitive work is in the mode of passion. Faith residing in religious activities is in the mode of ignorance. But faith in my devotional service is purely transcendental. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Mat sevayam tu nirvana. So faith towards spiritual life is basically niskam karmi yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga. They all come in mode of goodness. Faith in sakam karmi yoga comes in mode of passion. Faith into sinful activities comes in mode of ignorance. But faith in devotion service of the Lord is transcendental. Nirguna is transcendental. It is beyond three modes of materials. So this proves that Krishna here is talking about Paryasraddha, means he's talking about Bhakti only. He's telling that how among all the types of worshippers, devotee is the best. Now he starts talking about those who are impersonalist. Yeti akcharam anirdesyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam saniyam yendriye gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite ratah. Please read.
But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me.
Those who worship impersonal Brahman are inferior due to their state of suffering. So that's the main problem. So with their state of suffering, they consider inferior. Those who worship Brahman Aksharam, so for them it's very difficult. The reason is given why it's difficult. So the first thing it's given, Anirdesyam. Anirdesyam means you can't give it a designation. So let us say you want to explain about someone. So then we have to give some designation. Like some designations are very clear. This is my mother, father, husband, wife, children, designation. Similarly, no, this is my boss. These all designations are there. Even if you tell to other person, then you tell this man or this woman. That's a designation. Even if you talk about object, let us say the sofa set or the chair. So these all are called designations, but Brahman is beyond designation. It's without designation. So Anirdesyam is without designation. It's very difficult to indicate. What will you talk about? So you can talk about it. Then Avyaktam. Avyaktam is it doesn't have any form or qualities. So if there is some form, you can say, okay, this particular thing which is very thin, or this particular thing which is very thick. It has no form. Or if it has qualities, like for example, you cannot see air, but there is some quality. The touch of the air is very soothing today, or touch of the air is very turbulent today. So we can understand that no, there is something called air. Some quality has to be, but it doesn't have any quality also, Avyaktam. And then you may tell at least about a place, that it stays in a place or it resides in a place. But the problem with this Brahman is Dhruvam. Dhruvam means it is eternal, at the same rate it is all pervading. Since it is all pervading, it's very difficult to tell where the Brahman stays. So you can't talk about that also. So it's called Sarvagam, Sarvagam. Sarvagam means it's everywhere. Now fine, even then you try to use some logic and try to somehow find about it, but then it is Achintyam. Achintyam means it's beyond logic. Can't use your intelligence. Kutastham. Kutastham is it's extending all over time. It was there in the past, it is there in the present, it will be there in the future. It's there all the time. Achalam. Achalam is it neither increases nor decreases. So no increase, no decrease. Dhruvam. Dhruvam is eternal. So attend me in the form of impersonal Brahman. So that's why for such people, although Brahman is not different from the Lord, it's very difficult to conceive. So how they try to understand Brahman in general is by negation of anything material. Like even we can talk same thing about spiritual truths also, like form of the Lord. But even the form of the Lord, although we may not be, it's what we see is material. Lord's form is spiritual. So in that sense, we may not be able to see, but we can relate with it. Like when we say, Namo Pankaja Navaya, Namo Pankaja Maline, Namaste, Namaste Pankaj Angre. Namo Pankaj Maline, Namo Pankaj Netra, Namaste Pankaj Angre. So Pankaj Netraya, when we say Lord's eyes are like lotus, actually Lord's eyes can be compared to Lord's eyes only. It cannot be compared to anything else. But then we don't have anything more beautiful than lotus, so we compare it to lotus. But at least we can compare with something. But impersonalists, they can't compare with anything, but you can't designate it. You can't understand through intelligence. That it becomes very difficult. Like Krishna's color is spiritual, but it resembles like that of dark monsoon cloud. Samam hiranya paradhim vanamala varaha. Dhatu pravalnata vesamanutam. So Samam is he has a black sort of complexion. Black is blue complexion. That's Sam color. But exactly, it's not that spiritual. But still, we can relate with that form because material world is perfect reflection of the spiritual world. But then Brahman is very difficult. So how they understand Brahman is by understanding that it doesn't have any color, it doesn't have any form, it is not this, it is not that. So that's called Neti. Namam Sandanti Sastrani Nanam Dahati Pavkana Chanam Plejanti Apana Susati Narta. Krishna also uses that negation to explain about soul in Bhagavad Gita. It cannot be cut by the sword, it cannot be burnt by fire, it can't be moistened by water, it cannot be dried by wind. So it's called Nana. So Nati. So then to conceive is very difficult. So I'll just give an example for that. So how our acharyas explain the spiritual truths is by helping us to relate them with the material things. So this basically called Sakha Chandranyaya. Sakha Chandranyaya means one time one disciple, he didn't had a, like, he just couldn't know what is moon. He didn't know what was moon. He went to the Guru. Guru told him, look, outside, can you see a tree? Yes, I can see a tree. Can you see the stem of the tree? Yes, I can see the stem of the tree. Can you see the left two branches coming out of the tree? Disciple, yes, I can see the two branches coming out of the tree from left side. Can you see some round glowing object out between the two branches? Yes, I can see that. That's called moon. Now what happens is, disciple is coming, this is moon. Now he climbs up the tree and tries to catch the moon, then he understands, no, moon is very far away. Moon is not which is stuck between the branches. But at least now when he tries to catch the moon or maybe do some sort of moon landing, he can now understand that moon is something spiritual. It's very far away. Similarly, Achintya, Lord is called Achintya. Achintya means beyond logic. So when we use our logic to try to understand Krishna, we understand he's beyond logic. At least we understand. Now let us say Mayavadi, so not I won't say Mayavadi, but a impersonalist, Brahmavadi guru wants to tell that disciple what is moon. So what he'll do? He'll again so, can you see the tree? Yes, I can see the tree. Can you see the left two branches? Yes, I can see the left two branches. Can you see anything between the two branches? Say, no, I cannot see anything. Means how will you see it? Because today is Amavasya. Amavasya, there's no moon. So daily, what you see and what you are not seeing now is called moon. That's called the process of negation. Negation is what you cannot see now. That's called Brahman. So that's why they can't relate with anything. It's very difficult to relate with. And because they can't relate with, so Lord starts telling about their pains in text 5. क्लेशोऽधिकरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्तहि गतिर्दुःखं देहावद्भिर्वाप्यते.
For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Hare Krishna.
Those who are attracted to only Brahman, avyaktasakta chetsa, undergo excessive difficulties in attaining it. So that's why, because Brahman is such a thing that very difficult to conceive, understand. So then they have to undergo a lot of difficulties. Deha vadbhi. So something which is without qualities, how can one make it manifest? Understand. So deha means those who have deha means body. So those who have bodies generally have a tendency to relate with persons and personalities. For them it becomes very difficult. It's a great suffering to understand their goal. Because senses can understand sound, form, etc. But something which doesn't have any qualities, very difficult to understand. Therefore, stopping senses is necessary for those who desire to get impersonal Brahman without qualities. But problem is, senses are like rivers, which cannot be stopped. Sanat Kumar talks about it. With the pada pangada palasa valasa vikta karmasrayam vitam udgranti santa tadvanna rektamatiyo yatiyopi ruddha sotogarsta arnam bhaja vasudeva. So for devotees it's easy, but for others very difficult. It's like stopping the rivers. Kitso mahanavana apalavesam sadvagran nakram asukhena stiti santi tattam hare bhagavato bhajani yangram pittunupam vishnam uttardasranam. So those who take lotus, shelter of lotus feet of Krishna, it's very difficult, very easy to cross over the ocean of nescience. But for those who don't do that, it's very difficult. That's why even impersonalists, they need mixture of bhakti to get Brahman. If they don't do that, nanyat yathasthulika swabhaghatinam, it's like beating the empty husk from which nothing comes out. Only thing which comes out is pain. That's all. So Brahmaji speaks in the prayers. Sreya satyam bhakti modasate vivo klissanti ye keval bodhi labhate yesam aso klesaleksasate nanad astastul kusabhagatina. That those who don't take shelter of bhakti, they think only impersonal understanding of the absolute truth can give me Brahman realization. For them, their efforts is like beating the empty husk, from which only thing which you get is sweat, hard labor, but no grains. So they can't achieve Brahman. Only those who take shelter of bhakti along with cultivating Gyan, they can understand Brahman, or they can realize Brahman. The path is also very difficult, and goal also becomes impossible. So that's how Lord, in one sense, decries this path of impersonalist. It's very difficult. Okay, Ras Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanavad Pranam. Prabhu, is there any difference between Brahmavadi and Mayavadi?
Big difference.
Prabhuji, yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. The big difference is there in the sense that Mayavadis means those who consider Lord's name, form, qualities, pastimes as Maya. They are called Mayavadis. So they may be sometimes devotees also. Among devotees, those who think that Lord's form is like made of matter, so they become very sentimental. Like one lady I remember, no, she would tell that no, Gopal is my son. So then what she would do is, she would sometimes even take her to him to washroom and clean him with soap and water. So Lord doesn't have a mental body. You have to understand he has a spiritual body. So then Lord says Moghasa. Moghasa means as devotees, their desires, they don't get Brahman. Sorry, they don't get Golok Vrindavan or even Vaikuntha. Moga Karmano. If somebody is a Karma Yogi, but he thinks Lord's form is made of Maya, matter, he will not get result of Karma Yoga. He will neither get Brahman nor he will get Swarga. Moga Jnana Vichetsa. Similarly, those are impersonal, they will not get Brahman. So the only way, so these are called Mayavadis. The Mayavadis is basically concept where person thinks that Lord's name, form, qualities, pastimes are made of Maya. It's a concept. Okay. Impersonalists means those who want to merge in Brahman.
Yeah. So Brahmavadi or Nirakaravadi, both are same. It means.
They are same. Yes. So Brahmavadi, Nirakaravadi, they are same. But those who are Mayavadis, they are offenders.
Offenders.
Mayavadi Krishna Prabhu.
Okay, thank you, bro. Okay.
Prabhakar Prabhu, I think you didn't understand my analogy only. I never said that moon is a spiritual planet. What I said is that seeing moon is compared to understanding spiritual knowledge. Okay, Prabhakar Prabhu.
I think Prabhu is kind of like a sun planet and moon planet. They are like demigods, but how people are going there?
No, he's talking about spiritual. What I understand, how they can move to a spiritual place. So it's not a spiritual place; it's a material place. I was comparing seeing moon to understanding spiritual reality. That's called an analogy. You have analogies na, in your this exams. So that I have to put an analogy.
Prabhu, sun and moon both are same, or how, Prabhu? Then if there is like a same, you can understand.
No, sun and moon are not same; they're different.
Okay.
How can sun and moon be same? Whether you talk from Vedic path or current path, sun and moon are different; they're not same. Okay. Okay. So now we'll go to 6th, 7th. Now what Lord is going to do is Lord is going to talk about now different levels of bhakti. That's of course from 8, 9, 10. 6th, 7th is more about comparing with devotion service. So for impersonalist, path is very, very difficult. And what about devotees? So what about devotees? Krishna talks in 6th and 7th. Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasta matpara ananyanev yogena mam dhyayantu pasate tesam aham samudharta mrityu sansara sagarat bhavamina chirat partha maya vasati chetasam.
But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pruda, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
But those who are devotees, even if they don't have any gyan, even if they don't have any gyan, means in the sense that they are not like very logical or very intelligent. But if they're practicing pure devotion service, keval bhakti, they can easily attain liberation from this cycle of birth and death, sansar. Sanyasya, after giving up all other processes, if they pick up only devotion service, no other process. If they give up all other process for the purpose of attaining me, Mai, then for attaining Krishna, they give up karma, jnana, yoga, everything. Then what happens is, Ananya Yogena, they worship the Lord through Ananya Bhakti, pure devotion service. This is devoted karma jnana etc. So in this way, what happens for such a devotee? Those who take only shelter of Krishna or Lord Narayan, with the refuge of all persons, for them Lord helps. So Arjuna says, what is that help? Arjuna says, what is the method by which they cross over the ocean of birth and death? So Lord says, they don't have to worry about the process. You don't worry about how to cross this ocean of nescience. Because even if they don't know the method, it is whose worry? It is my worry. I take them over. I come in Garuna, catch their hands, take them over. You have seen that photo? A devotee is like drowning in the ocean and Lord comes and picks up. He comes in Garuna. So in this way, Lord himself comes and takes over. How much over? How much time it takes? Bhavamina chirat parta. Lord says, I cannot bear separation from him. So I'm quick deliverer of that devotee from the ocean of samsara. So Lord does it very, very quickly. Why? Because he has affection for the devotees. He doesn't have affection for karmi, jnani, yogi, all these people, but he has a lot of affection for the devotees. So because he has affection for the devotees, he takes them, he picks them from ocean of nescience very, very quickly. So bhavamina chirat parta. Maybe you can read this second and third paragraph. Second and third paragraph of the purport.
As stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay, he will deliver a pure devotee, thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process. And others take the opportunity in various ways. But as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. Hare Krishna.
That's why devotees don't have to work very hard. It's Krishna who works very hard for the devotees. For preaching purpose, how to get attention of people, Birth and death are biggest pains of Jiva. Death anyhow they will understand. What about birth? Birth we have 3.31. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.31. Third canto chapter number 31. So from there they'll understand. And yes, we can do. Like no, I generally every Sunday I give classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. But then this class on birth, people appreciate like anything. It was something they didn't knew. They didn't know how it is such a suffering. So you can convince like that. So Manjunath too.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, you mentioned devotees no need to work hard or something. Can you just highlight more on that?
Work hard means they don't have to worry. Devotees work anyway very hard for achieving Krishna. But they don't have to worry in the sense that, oh, whether currently I am becoming more humble or not, I am becoming more tolerant or not. Certainly we should aspire for this quality, but they don't have to worry too much for it. They don't have to worry that my senses are getting in control, out of control. Other people have to worry too much. Devotees don't have to worry so much. If they just keep on engaging in devotion service, what happens in due course of time, automatically these things happen. So they should aspire for it, try for it, but not to, they don't have to work like the way impersonalists work. They have to really work very hard. If we understand their hard work, we'll understand our hard work is nothing. So their hard work is like too much focused. It's very difficult. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, but still we can find more devotees struggle hard for that. So
No, you are saying like that because have you seen the struggle of Karma Yogis and Gyan Yogis?
yes.
Hmm?
Yes, Prabhu.
Genuine ones means who are from, let us say, you go to Haridwar, then you will understand.
Okay. No, that I didn't see, Prabhu.
You must have seen no so-called Gyan Yogis and Karma Yogis.
Yep.
I'm talking about the genuine ones. Genuine ones, they really work very hard.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Then Mataji said that why Krishna tests the devotee so much? Krishna doesn't test. Actually speaking, what happens is Krishna doesn't test, rather our own karmas are enough to test us. So according to our past life karma, we are supposed to get some sufferings and some enjoyments. So they are basically called prarabdha karmas. Especially the karmas which are there in the horoscope, they are called prarabdha karmas, manifest one. Manifest one means along with our body, automatically some karmas are supposed to be manifested.
Prabhuji, just another point. You just mentioned Krishna will not test, but we used to hear that if something happened, good or positive, it's all because of Krishna's plan. We used to hear that. How to understand that, Prabhu? When you mentioned because of karmas, their past deeds, it will happen.
Let me complete, then you can ask.
Okay.
Let me just complete what I am speaking. So what happens is prarabdha karmas, they are the last one to go off in the case of bhakta. So for a devotee, they are the last one to go off. For other people, karmis, gyanis, yogis, they can't even get rid of it. Prarabdha karmas. Only by bhakti prarabdha karmas are destroyed. But by bhakti prarabdha karmas are destroyed after very intense practice for very long period of time. It's not that easy. So among aprarabdha phalam papam putam bijam phalonmukham. Phalonmukham means those which is already manifest, means along with this body. Because when you are born in a particular nakshatra and grahas, things are already designed for that life. So first of all, what goes is aprarabdha, then phalam, aprarabdha phalam, papam, then papam goes away, the sinful action, kutam, sinful tendencies, bijam, the sinful desires, and then comes phalonmukham. Phalonmukham is the manifested ones. So the manifested or prarabdha karmas, They're the last one to go off. And because they're the last one to go off, they automatically trouble. So now what do we say? Test. Test means amidst those situations, what type of consciousness we have. That's the test. So that test is automatically bound to happen because activities have nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. In amidst those situations, how much we are Krishna conscious, that's the test. Because difficulties and miseries will come in everyone's life. Now somebody say, no, I don't have any difficulty and miseries. Then we have happiness. Happiness is also a test. So when things are very pleasurable, things are going in order, in those situations, can we remember Krishna? If you can remember Krishna at that time, that's also a big test. So Krishna consciousness doesn't need a specific situation to test us. That's what we read in Bhagavad Gita. Activity is same. Krishna is continuously encouraging Arjuna to fight in the whole Bhagavad Gita. But then within that there is Karma Kanda reason for fighting. Then there is Karma Yoga reason for fighting, Niskam Karma Yoga. That reason is there for fighting. Then Krishna talks about Ashtanga Yoga also. Now you can do this and later on you can take Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. And then Krishna talks from Bhakti point of view, why Arjuna should fight. So in this way, activities are same, but depending on the motive and consciousness, the things change. And that is the reason I spoke that we don't have to test. Things are already under test. So how devotees think? How devotees should think is Tattenu Kampa Susamaksamano Bhunjan Vevatm Kritam Vipatam Hirdavag Vapurvir Vidhan Namaste Jivetiyo Mukti Padesadaika. That Lord has given me misery in very small form. I deserved a lot. And in this way, one thanks Krishna. One continues one practice of Krishna consciousness. Brahmaji says such a person becomes the rightful heir for going back to Godhead. Like father doesn't have to work very hard, son doesn't have to work very hard to get the property of father. Similarly, such a person doesn't have to work very hard to go back to Godhead. So in this way, for a devotee, what we understand is like, already things are there, things are designed. For everyone it happens. Currently for me also a lot of mental turmoil was written. Certain things are happening. But then I just accepted and now as soon as I chant, things disappear. So what I see is that we can transcend the misery sweating shelter of Krishna, and that's the test. How much can you transcend? How much can you transcend? Both misery as well as pleasure also. So some devotees have trouble with miseries. This misery is coming, that misery is coming, I have to transcend. Some devotees have trouble with senses because when they have pleasures in life. So what to do, Prabhuji? This is coming, that is coming. No, I'm not able to give up sense gratification. I'm getting attracted. So one has to transcend that. So in either of the cases, we have to transcend, whether it's pleasure or misery. Because for devotees, in one way, both of them are misery only. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I think Manjunath Pru's question is also answered now.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay. Devotees who only chant and give some donation but do not do any services or come to ISKCON, so will they go behind Bhakti Godhead? Chanting is also service. It's called Nam Seva. For us, because since we are very gross and we have very gross senses, we think only physical service is service. Chanting is also service. Hearing Bhagavad Gita and reading Bhagavad Gita is also Bhakti service. We worship the Lord through our intelligence when we read and hear Bhagavad Gita. And similarly, physical service are also service. So all of them are service only. Jivar Swarupare Krishna Nityadas. Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, they all are ninefold devotion service. But they don't do senses. So only things done through hands and legs is not called service. Things done through Vani, through mind, through intelligence, all of them are service only. So if they are doing service, they can go back to what. Sometimes we have a very, what do we say, narrow-minded understanding of Bhakti. Now imagine Gaurav Babaji Maharaj would have been there today. What you would have said? Arey, Maharaj so doesn't do any service, but he's chanting whole day and night. So you may not be able to accommodate him in ISKCON, but then he's beyond all the three gunas. He's Paramhansa. And of course, such a person, he cannot be expected to do service. Why should we expect him to do service? So that's why we should not have very narrow-minded understanding. We should have broad-mindedness. Okay. Radha Smriti Mataji. Okay, I think she's not there. And she's there. Okay, Mataji. Yes. Okay.
Prabhuji, just a clarification, Prabhuji. So chanting also is a service you mentioned. So servicing to the Lord, right, Prabhuji?
Obviously.
Okay.
Hare Krishna means Hare means Radharani, Krishna means Krishna.
Okay. So
it's called Nam Seva.
Yeah. So reading scriptures and serving to Vaishnava, all serving Vaishnava also, it's a Vaishnava indirectly service to Lord.
See, Lord means Lord plus his paraphernalia, his associates.
Okay.
When suppose a lady is serving the husband, that means she's also serving the family members. Not that only husband. I'm married to husband only, nothing to do with the family members.
Okay. So Vaishnavas comes under paraphernalia, right, Prabhu?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Rather, Krishna considers their service to be greater than his own service.
Okay. Got it.
Mad Bhakta Puja Vedika. This is more important.
Thank you.
Now, in a practical sense, we may need some practical services to purify our senses. So, if we use our senses in deity worship, worshipping the deity paraphernalia, worshipping Vaishnavas, doing some physical services, then what happens is senses which are easiest to control gets controlled. In that sense, that's why we encourage physical services also. But that doesn't mean Nam Seva is not Seva. Somebody can chant 24 hours, very good. If somebody cannot do that, then we need other services. Okay. So we have 15 minutes. So now we'll talk about different levels of devotion service in 8, 9, and 10. Maya man adhatsa mai buddhim nivesa nivasyasi mai eva at urdhvam na samsayah. Please read.
Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So Mayeva man adhasa. That is considered topmost devotion service. That's called Smarnamatmaka Bhakti. That means one concentrates one's mind on the form of Krishna, Samsundar, and one can't forget Krishna. That's the state of Brajavasis. Like Uddhav came to Vrindavan to tell gopis, Krishna is everywhere, he's all pervading, he's there within your heart, concentrate on him. Gopis said that no, we also do meditation, but not to remember Krishna, to forget him. The more we try to forget him, more we remember him. So we can't give up thinking of Krishna. So that's called first class devotion service. Those who can't deviate their mind away from Krishna. So that's topmost. Wearing Pitambari, Vajanti Mala, etc. So that sort of meditation. If somebody cannot do that, then Mai Buddhim Nivesya, Nivesyasya Mayev At Udhamna Sansaya. So one fixes one's intelligence on Krishna. That means one uses power of discrimination to absorb in Krishna. This means whatever statements are in the scriptures, one reflects on it, remembers it, applies it. which will result in meditation. So Lord says, then nivyasasi, you will stay in me. So this is called manan atmika bhakti. Manan is done through intelligence. So first class is manatmika. If one cannot do that, then there's mananatmika, where one uses one intelligence. So for those who cannot fix their mind on Krishna, they can just concentrate on scriptures, read scriptures, and in this way use their intelligence and understand Krishna. I will take questions after the whole discussion, not now. Because your question may be answered just what we say in the future verses. Then ninth one. Achittam samadhatum na saknosi mai stiram abhyas yokena tato mam ikshaptum dhananjaya. Please read.
My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
So in this way, I'll tell you version of what Prabhupada and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. So according to Prabhupada, what he says is, if you cannot fix one's mind on Krishna without deviation, then you practice regulative principle of Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. So you do that, and then after some time, mind will be fixed on Krishna. That's practical for all of us. How Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur takes it? If you are not able to remember Krishna, then withdraw your mind from wherever it goes here and there and fix on Krishna. Now stopping the mind is like now practically controlling the river. So if river is compared to mind, and things on either side of the river are compared to vulgar sense objects. So mind has a tendency to go towards vulgar sense objects. But what one should do? Control the mind, fix that mind on Krishna again and again and again and again. Due course of time, what will happen is one will get a higher taste, and then one will be able to give up the lower taste. In this way, one can fix one's mind's movement on the beautiful form of Krishna. So Lord says, Dhananjaya, conqueror of wealth. So you have conquered the wealth earlier. Now you conquer the enemies and conquer the and get the treasure of dhan, the treasure of meditation. So get the treasure of meditation, Dhananjaya. So in this way, so but amazingly, Lord talks about reading scriptures and dwelling in scriptures more than fixing our mind again and again on Krishna. That means dealing with intelligence is easier than dealing with the mind. That means for people whose mind deviates here and there, it's better and easier to fix one's intelligence on Krishna. And you'll find also what is easier, to just focus on chanting or focus on philosophical discussions.
Focus on philosophical discussion.
Yeah. So focusing on philosophical discussion is easier than focusing on chanting. Now that doesn't mean we don't do chanting. Chanting is always very purifying. It's more purifying than philosophical discussions. But at the same time, we can't do it all the time. So then we spend some time in discussing philosophy also. So using one's intelligence is easier than using the mind. If somebody can just chant, that's better. So somebody is doing. Now let us say somebody is more degraded. Then what one can do? Abhyase api samartho asi mat karma paramo bhava madartham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsasi. You read both translation and purport so that we understand how Prabhupada takes it.
If you cannot practice the regulation of Bhakti Yoga, just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Right? one who is not able to even to practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga under the guidance of a spiritual master can still be drawn to this perfectional stage by working for the Supreme Lord. How to do this work has already been explained in the 55th verse of the 11th chapter. One should be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. There are many devotees who are engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness and they require help. So even if one cannot direct practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, he can try to help such work. Every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. Just as in business, one requires a place to stay, some capital to use, some labor, and some organization to expand. So same is required in the service of Krishna. The only difference is that in materialism, one works for sense gratification. The same work, however, can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, and that is spiritual activity. If one has sufficient money, he can help in building an office or temple for propagating Krishna consciousness, or he can help with publications. There are various fields of activity, and one should be interested in such activities. If one cannot sacrifice the result of his activities, the same person can still sacrifice some percentage to propagate Krishna consciousness. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher stage of love for God, whereupon one becomes perfect. Hare Krishna.
So how Prabhupada is saying it is that somebody cannot become a 16-rounder devotee, following 40 principles, etc. So then what one can do? One can become a donors. You can just donate. You can give some land. You can help in getting some permissions for ISKCON. So in this way, different ways you use it for serving Krishna. Then in due course of time, what will happen is you'll get some taste for chanting. You'll get purified. And then slowly you may become 1600 devotee. If somebody cannot do that, he can do that. So that's what how Prabhupada takes it. Now how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur takes it, we'll see. So after this verse number 9, Arjuna says, but I am like a jaundice patient. My mind is too much contaminated by ignorance. So I can't taste the sweetness of your form. The way you are saying, control your mind again and again. Bring your mind on me. So I can't control this combat with this strong mind. What should I do? So then Krishna says this, then become engaged in activities meant for highest benefit. Mat karma paramaha. So what are those activities? Those activities are activities of sadhana bhakti. Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting, picking up flowers, doing duty worship, remembering the Lord. So in due course of time, it will bring prema bhakti. So according to Vishwanath Thakur, verse number 8 and verse number 9, we're talking about serving through internal senses. First one was serving through mind, Smaranatma bhakti. Second was worshipping through intelligence, Mananatmaka bhakti. Third one was also, there's Abhyas Rupa, Abhyas Yoga. That was also using mind and again absorbing mind in Krishna's form. So he says, if you can't do that, then do it by using the practical or by karmendriyas. Like when we hear and chant, we use one gyanendriya, that's ear, and we use a karmendriya called tongue. Tongue, when it tastes, is called a gyanendriya. When tongue speaks, it's called karmendriya. So in this way, we use our karmendriya, tongue, and in hearing. Similarly, we use our hands and legs. They're all karmendriyas in duty worship, etc. So by that, in due course of time, we'll get taste for absorbing our mind and intelligence in Krishna. So sometimes especially new devotees have this trouble. They say, we can't chant, we can't hear, we don't have taste for scriptures, what to do. Fine, then do physical services. Due course of time, these things will come. So whatever is minimum quota, you do that, of hearing and chanting and etc. Duty worship, etc. Sorry, all these things. And the other time you can do duty worship. Other times you can do physical services. And due course of time, the taste for hearing and chanting will manifest. It will happen. So we have 3 minutes. I think we can take at least 2 more verses or 1 more verse. 2 verses we'll take, then it will end. This section will end. अथेता तपि असक्तो असि कर्तुं मद्योगमाश्रितः सर्वकर्म फलत्यागं तथा कुरु यथात्मवान्. Please read. Read both again. Or you can just read translation. I'll tell you about purport. Yes.
However, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all the results of your work and try to be self-situated.
Yeah, so if somebody can't even do that, then basically, according to Prabhupada, Krishna is saying do some sort of social welfare activities according to scriptures, not whimsically. So then what you can do? You can give some charity, open the hospitals, do some social welfare activities according to scriptures. According to scriptures, in the particular time, you should do this sort of donation, that sort of donation to the poor people. Because if you see, array, my family members is so much creating trouble for me, or my religion is different, I can't do that. So Prabhupada writes that if your family is too much against your and your religion is not allowing you to even practice Krishna consciousness, that extreme things are there, then Prabhupada says, okay, fine, do some social welfare activities according to scriptures. So by doing that, what will happen is, due course of time, maybe you'll get a favorable environment to practice Krishna consciousness. So actually speaking, nobody can stop practice of Krishna consciousness. I know some devotees, they are single devotee in entire Muslim country. That means even family members are not devotees. In 2015, when we had Jaludi Yatra, we found some Prabhupada disciples. Prabhupada disciples are practicing since last 50 years. None of the family members are devotees. All are Muslims. Entire country is Muslim. So you have to know, I am the only devotee in the whole country. So that means under such trivial and such extreme situation also one can practice. But if somebody is saying I can't practice, means that 100% sure such a person doesn't want to practice. You can always chant quietly, secretly somewhere. So that means you can't practice, then fine, do some social welfare activities. By that, at least you'll come to motor goodness, and then later on you'll get some taste for devotion service when you meet some devotee. According to Vishwanath Thakur, this particular verse is talking about Niskam Karma Yoga, Mad Yoga Masrita. So you can't do Smaranatmika, Maranatmika Bhakti through internal senses. You can't do Abhyas Rupa through external senses. No. So hearing, chanting, etc. So then Lord says, at least do Niskam Karma Yoga, and by good fortune, if you meet devotees tomorrow, then you will get Bhakti. And then he tells the hierarchy in text number 12. Seyo hi jnanam abhyasas jnanat dhyanam visishyate dhyanat karma phala tyagas tyagas shantyam anantaram. Please read.
If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So Sreyu Jnanam Abhyasas. That means Mananatma Bhakti. Jnana Dhyanam Visishyate. That means that Dhyan, that Manan is better. Smaranatmaka Bhakti is better than Manatmaka Bhakti. Manatmaka Bhakti is better than Abhyas Rupa. So what Lord says is basically here is that fixing one's intelligence on the Lord, Manan, is greater than Abhyasa practice. Similarly, Manan or meditation on the Lord or Smaran is better than just Smaran is better than Manan. Because if one constantly remembers Krishna, then one will never desire for Swarga, liberation, etc. Dhyanas, karma, phala, tyagas means all sort of phala, positive, negative, all one gives up. By what dhyana? Dhyana here is referring to Smaranatmaka Bhakti. Tyaga Santyam Anantaram. And such a person attains peace. That means if mind is totally absorbed in Krishna, that's perfection. Till then, use your intelligence. If you can't use your intelligence, then you do physical services and engage your practical sense in service of Krishna. So that's the hierarchy. So Mananatmaka Bhakti, sorry, Smaranatmaka Bhakti, then Mananatmaka Bhakti. After that, Abhyas Rupa. And if one cannot do, then Krishna says, oh, at least do Niskam Karma. So that's how Krishna gives the hierarchy. What qualities becomes please of devotees please Krishna? Krishna will speak from 13. That will take in the next class. Okay, fine. Now Manjunath, who has a question? I think his question must be answered. Okay, I think he has become busy now. So we'll end here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gita Gaur Premanande.
Jai. Kalyan Prabhu.
Prabhu, stopping it.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.